today I want to compare this Squale, which I reviewed quite recently, with a Steinhart, and I've chosen this particular Steinhart, but really most Steinharts I've reviewed can kind of stand in as a representative. If I had my free choice, of course, I would probably go with something like the Ocean Black Ceramic, but I have this particular one today as a stand-in for Steinhart. So let's just quickly introduce the watches here. So over on the left, I have the very popular, very often mentioned Squale 20 Atmos 1545, or rather maybe more easily known as the Squale Submariner homage. On the right corner, okay, so something that I've also reviewed not so long ago. This is the Nomad Watch exclusive Steinhart Ocean 39 Explorer dial. Okay, so this is very, I think very probably popular because it's definitely sold out. So you can't actually buy it from a retailer anymore, from Nomad Watches anymore. Both of these watches are courtesy of Jeremy, who has come forth, local supporter and enthusiast, who has come forth to lend both these watches for review and comparison. So a quick shout out, many thanks to Jeremy for lending two very good watches here. So what we have here are two of the most popular Swiss-made Submariner style homages. One is the very often brought up Stale 1545, and the other is a piece from German-based Steinhart, a brand that has gone from strength to strength, and no doubt also very well known for some of the Submariner homages that they have done. So we have an Italian kind of base brand versus a German base brand, both with 316L steel. They both have screw down case backs. So, let you see the case backs on these watches. They're clearly solid screw down case backs with screw down crowns. Both have 120 click unidirectional dive bezels, of course, as you might expect, and superluminova on the dial and bezel pip. Which one will come out on top? MSRP wise, this one, it's a bit difficult to find this original version, but I think it's around the 550 mark is really what the original MSRP was. And this one went for $499, effectively 500 USD. So both, very similar in terms of the MSRP. I'm just going to screw this crown back in for this particular review here. Okay, so very similar in price and performance and many characteristics, but let's just go for this head-to-head here. So first up, the caliber here. So in this case, they are both actually at a 28-24 calibers. I've reviewed the individual watches before. The difference is the Steinhart is the Elabore grade caliber, whereas as far as I can tell, the Squale is the 28-24 standard. Regulation wise, it does kind of match that. Squale is running about plus 9 seconds per day, whereas the Steinhart is actually plus 1 second per day, well within the Elabore regulated accuracy. So, I think you do have to give the mark to the Steinhart. Whatever it is definitely a better caliber and certainly better regulated in this case. Okay, case and bezel. Now what we have here, they both are, I think, very well executed Submariner style homages to me, right? This one's 39 mils, so it's a slightly smaller watch, but look, they're both Submariner homage cases. They're not separable in terms of, how they've executed it. They are both really quite good. In fact, a Squale probably is a little bit better in terms of their case profile. They've done one of the better case profiles here. Both of these bezels are really quite stiff to turn. You can check out my individual reviews for how the bezel function is. I'm not going to go through that in this particular comparison, but they're both pretty stiff. Steinhart perhaps slightly stiffer. But the fit and finish is pretty good. So I think I have to give the same mark for the case and bezel mark here. It's not really a separable category for me. Okay, next up, dial and crystal. Look, I think they're both very good, right? The Squale, perfectly serviceable, right? In terms of the dial, it's a Rolex Submariner dial, nothing wrong with it. It works perfectly well. I think the Steinhart, in this particular case at least, brings something extra with a vintage Explorer style dial, as well as the glass being domed. a dome sapphire rather than just a standard flat sapphire. It adds a little bit of character. I do like this very much, the changes here, and therefore I've given the mark to the Steinhart in this case. I think if you just have the standard ocean, black ceramic, it's probably going to be the same mark for this particular category. But today on this comparison, it's Steinhart 8, Squale 7. Okay, next up, Bracelet. Right, okay. So I think they both have very good, solid end links, of course, right? Check that out. Of course, it's going to be a solid end links. They also both have screw adjustments. Let's see if I can show you, right, that there, right? It's got a screw adjustment on the Squale as well as the Steinhart. Every Steinhart I've reviewed has had screw links on the Bracelet. The difference between the two, I would say that the Squale has a good dive extension, but it has a little bit poorer in terms of the clasp housing there. It's a little bit cheaper looking, as is the keeper. I'll just contrast that with the Steinhart here. So the Steinhart Bracelet, again, of course, solid end links, as you can see there, screw link adjustment. Hopefully you can see the screw links there, and also a pressed metal housing. But I think this one just is a little bit more substantial, right? The keepers, the arms are the same, they're solid arms. This one doesn't have a dive extension. So I guess the Squale gets the mark for the dive extension, whereas the Steinhart is just a little bit better in terms of the clasp housing. So it comes out even. I'm giving them 8 out of 10 for both the Squale and the Steinhart. Okay, next up, quality. Look, the case, the dial, right, the bezel, the fit and finish overall, I think very, very similar. In fact, not possible to separate for me. Both quality, for the 500 price mark, really they are pretty darn good, both of them. I'm not going to separate them, and I can't distinguish them in terms of the quality. Very difficult to pick one over the other. 8 out of 10 for both here. Okay, next up then, style. All right, so I think they're both derivative styling, right? Of course, they're not original styling here. They are really subby homages. So marks knocked off for the styling. In fact, in my discussions in other comparative videos, people have wanted me to give 1 or 0 for the styling on homage watches. I'm not doing that. I'm giving them some degree of marking here. So I've chosen a certain mark. I think in this case, the Steinhart here is just that much better with that vintage styling, Explorer dial, as well as the Jubilee variant on the Bracelet there. I think this is just a little bit of a step up from what is much more a straight 5-digit stainless steel sub-homage here. So I've given an extra mark to the Steinhart, being 7, and I've gone for 6 for the styling of the Squale, for derivative styling today here. Again, if I had the Ocean One Black Ceramic, I think the mark would be exactly the same. It would be 6 for both. For this particular Steinhart stand-in for this day, it's a 7. Okay, so next up, performance. Again, I don't think it's possible for me to separate here. The Squale is a 200-meter water-rated watch. The Steinhart is actually 300, even though it says 100 on the dial. Look, this is actually a 300-meter engineered case. That I think realistically is no difference for the vast majority of human beings. The Steinhart, I think, has a slightly stiffer bezel, more in terms of more difficult to operate. So it comes out about even. The loom performance is about the same. Steinhart probably just a smidgen better, but they both don't last completely through the night. I think the Steinhart just a little bit better on the loom front. So performance-wise, I've given the same mark here, 8 out of 10 for both. Okay, durability. The materials in these two watches are effectively the same, right? Stainless steel sapphire with aluminium bezel insert. The Steinhart is a slightly smaller watch, but not that much lighter. It's really less than 10 grams lighter than the Squale here. If you look at the overall build and solidity of both watches, right? I can't really separate them. I think the durability of these are the same. If you have a watch with a ceramic insert, I think, for example, the Ocean One Black Ceramic, I think it's only fair to compare that to the current version of the Squale, which also has ceramic, in which case it still comes out the same mark in terms of durability and materials here. So 8 out of 10 for both in terms of the, the kind of robustness of the build here. All right, can't separate these ones. Okay, next up, value. All right, guys, so this is another separation here. I think they're both rather good in terms of what you get for the money. You're getting Swiss made, you're getting Swiss movement, of course, with the ETA 2824 on both. Sapphire with a very well-made dive watch. I just think the Steinhart continues to be the best in class, at this price range, right? They're giving a Elabore grade movement that is excellently regulated. You're getting excellent materials. It just edges ahead in terms of the value proposition, one of the best you can get. The Squale, the movement in this case, I've spoken about it. It's just not quite as good, not quite as well regulated. I have to give the value mark to the Steinhart here, 9 out of 10 versus 8 out of 10 for the Squale. Okay, last one here, okay, brand. Right, this one, I think there's a little bit of subjectivity here. I've given them the same mark today. I think they're both pretty well-established brands, and if you go by history, Squale certainly has more history, but today, in terms of, fan following, discussion, interest, it seems that Steinhart probably is a little bit ahead. That's just my feeling in kind of hearing the fans and reading the forums, but I may be wrong about that. Certainly Squale is a much older brand. Steinhart is relatively new, yet have managed to gain a huge following because of the value and quality that they give. So, it's hard for me to pick a brand. I think they're both good brands, and therefore I've given them the same mark today, 8 out of 10 for Steinhart versus Squale. I think you could argue maybe you should give a mark to Squale for the history and the recognition and how long they've been around, the achievements in terms of case manufacturer. But look, it's the same mark for me today, just in terms of my feel for these two brands. So there we go. That's the comparison marks there. What are the totals? You can see that really the Steinhart probably would edge ahead. And indeed today, for this model, for the Ocean 39 Explorer, it takes the win because of those different factors that I talked about. So in summary, guys, a close battle between two of the best Rolex Submariner homages at the $500 price point. In fact, probably two of the best under 1,000 that you can get. So they both got the same marks on many categories. So case and bezel, bracelet, quality, performance, durability, and brand. All those marks, I gave them the same thing. It's just that the Steinhart wins because it has the better movement. The dial and crystal execution here, I think it's just slightly better with the vintage homage, Explorer styling. With the Jubilee bracelet, I think it takes the mark for the style as well as outstanding value at the 500 mark. As Steinhart continues to be the value king here. I think if you're considering the Ocean 1 black ceramic, again, I'll put the picture of it at the side here, it would get equal marks for the dial and crystal as well as the style in comparison with the Squale today, but it would still win on the movement as well as the value stakes, so it still would come out on top, I think. So there you go, guys, my comparison between these two watches. Very keen to hear your thoughts on this, particularly if you own either or both of these brands. Let me know what you think. Guys, if you enjoy my videos, do consider subscribing. I put out new content every week, always aiming to be objective and unbiased about all things horology. Thank you again for sticking with me, and as always, I'll catch you guys next time.